And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show, everybody. Monday, November 25th. I am Josh Engleman here to break down a different size slate depending on where you're playing. We've got 9 games tonight on FanDuel. DraftKings dropped the 210s, so we have a 7-game slate on the DraftKings side. We're going early today, special early edition, 8 a.m. start time, sort of old school process vibe. Stephen Leibowitz in the house. Early start. Got my coffee and a breakfast. Sammy on focaccia. Ready to ball. Let's do it. I knew I'd have some of you crazies this early, but I got to head home today, so had to start this one up at the early hours. I should have did it at, well, I shouldn't have done it, but I should have done it at 6:30, old school process style. But that would have been rough. It would have been rough. Michael Pavlik, good morning. Good to have everybody here. It'll be a slow trickle, I'm sure, for the early day, but that's fine. We got a lot to talk about. Lots of back-to-backs and guys with Q tags, so information is limited, but we're going to do our best with what we have for right now, especially with the back-to-back. Knowing who's in, who's out. I mean, Pacers are on the back-to-back. Raptors, no injury report. Dallas, the Clippers, the Celtics, Brooklyn, Sacramento, and then, a bunch of Q tags in different places that are certainly not going to help us. CJ McCollum, Eve Messi, Wendell Carter Jr., Cade's still out. Jeremy Grant, Scoot, Ja, Miles McBride, Towns. So, lots of Qs hanging out. Steven, they did. It was good. Thanks. So here we go. We're just going to get into it. We're going to talk through everything that we have right now. We've got all of the same normal shows later tonight, so we'll be able to hash that out. Got plenty of time to break down this news. We're going to kick it off. Orlando Magic, 4.5-point favorites in Charlotte, 213 total. So I actually have Orlando as a slightly bigger favorite here. And I'm a little surprised because Charlotte is aggressively walking wounded. Miles Bridges out. Trey Mann out. Obviously, Nick Richards out. Mark Williams out. And then we got the big news Saturday. Grant Williams looking like he's going to be done for the year. Torn ACL. So they are now down their first choice center, their second choice center, and their third choice center. Probably not what Charlotte was looking for here. So bigs against Charlotte, that's going to be a thing moving forward, like it always has been. So looking at the Orlando side, we've got the Q tag on Wendell Carter Jr. He's still, it's weird. I mean, he's been questionable for quite a bit now. And we've been waiting for him to get back. I'm assuming he's going to be back today, but I also assumed he was going to be back, the last game and the game before that and the game before that. Now, if everybody's in for Orlando, I don't think there's a ton that really looks good. I mean, Franz is up to 9,600 on both sites now. That's a lot. No matter how good he's playing, and it is about as good as anybody in the league. If I remember correctly, he's like second or third in Darko plus minus so far this season, which, I mean, that's kind of crazy. He's okay. It's a little bit further down. He is functionally fifth behind Jokic, Shea, Tatum, and Curry. If we want to get technical, Ty Jerome has the 5th highest EPM so far this season. That is not something that I would have expected to see. However, when you shoot 54% from 3, you're probably grading out pretty well. But for Orlando, I don't see immediate priorities. I do think Anthony Black looks good on DraftKings at 4,400. Minutes have crept up a bit. He's $700 cheaper than he is on FanDuel, so completely different play there. But I think Anthony Black would be the guy that I would have my eye on from Orlando on the DraftKings side. I'm not expecting much ownership here. Now that they've really established this rotation since Paolo's been out, there's just not a lot of salary value for us to squeeze out of DraftKings right now. On the FanDuel side, I kind of like Mo Wagner. I assume we end up with better value options as the day goes on. But 4,700 has the power forward center eligibility. I think he's easy to get into lineups on FanDuel. I don't know if I would necessarily call him a priority because I think his sort of interest early in the morning goes away as more and more value starts to open up. But he's probably the most cost-efficient guy that you can get to on the FanDuel side. There's probably Anthony Black on the DK side, but there's just not much else here. I mean, the matchup's fantastic. Charlotte sucks. Defense is terrible. They're running out of bodies that look like centers. Unfortunately, that's going to be what we need to talk about on the Charlotte side with all those guys out. Hard to not want to get to Diabate. Moussa Diabate is going to be 4,900 on DraftKings, center only. 5,300 on FanDuel, center only. Clearly grades out better on the DraftKings side since you can use more than one center. But, I mean, I went 30 minutes. They don't really have many choices. The only other real option is Taj Gibson at this point, which shouldn't be an option for anybody. So it's Diabate. I mean, he played, I think, 32 and 32 in those last two games. I get that off the top of my head. 32 and 31. I mean, how good can you be? Close enough. I think Brandon Miller looks great too. I mean, he's playing more than 36 minutes a night lately. I feel pretty comfortable going to 36. Obviously, the matchup is terrible against Orlando, but if it's not Diabate for me, it is Brandon Miller. Long before I'm getting to a 10K LaMelo, I would greatly prefer Miller with the shooting guard small forward eligibility across both sites. 7,500 too. And then your Cody Martins are something, at least on DraftKings, $800 cheaper than he is on FanDuel. That'll be a value piece that works. They're just going to have these real dudes soak up more minutes, whether it's Misic or Curry or Nick Smith getting additional run. I don't think any of these guys could ever, we won't be confident enough in them before the game starts, at least. I don't think Salon will get enough minutes to matter, and he's terrible. I mean, most of these guys are pretty terrible. That's why they're on Charlotte. But it's Brandon Miller and Moussa Diabate as your two priorities coming from the Hornets side. You guys seen anything different? Anything that catches your eye between Orlando and Charlotte? Like I said, I'd love to get to more Franz, but if he's going to be 9,600, that is tough to get to, no matter how good he's playing. All right, topping off a little bit of coffee because I'm going to die if I don't. All right, back in business. Game 2, Toronto Raptors, 4.5-point dogs in Detroit, 222 total. So this one's basically impossible for us to talk about at this point. Toronto's on the back-to-back. Davion Mitchell, I believe. Did he leave early? Somebody left early. No. Agbaji started the second half over... No, Davion Mitchell started the second half over Agbaji. But we don't have a Toronto injury report. I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility that someone sits. Or I don't think Quickly will be back today, but these are the types of things that could pop up on that 1:30 injury report. So news is a little lacking when it comes to the Toronto side, and interesting plays are certainly lacking when it comes to the Toronto side. To me, it's 3 guys and 3 guys only. You're either getting to RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, or Jake Puddle. Depending on the site, it's going to be a different dude. Barnes on FanDuel has a more advantageous price. Position works. He's the dude you want to get to from Toronto if you're playing anybody on the FanDuel side. Jake Puddle's sort of the same dude on both sites. RJ Barrett, sort of the same guy on both sites. I just don't see any way you're getting to anything else here without a bunch of guys being out. That thing really is the longest buzz ever. I don't know if you guys heard that, but the either washer or dryer in this house buzzes for a preposterously long time. So hope you guys enjoyed that if you heard it. If you didn't, then pretend everything that I just said never happened. RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, Jake Puddle. Don't click on any other names for the Toronto Raptors unless we get news that somebody's out. Speaking of teams that have people out, Cade Cunningham, doubtful for this one. And then we also officially got Asar Thompson back, assuming he is going to be slowly worked back. I don't know what they're doing with him right now. For, if you want to swap out Wendell Moore's minutes for Asar Thompson's minutes, I think that makes some sense. There's just a lot to like here for Detroit with no Cade around, whether that's Malik Beasley at 5,400 on DraftKings, 5,300 on FanDuel. I've got him 25% optimal. That's just, there's a lot of minutes to go around. It's him starting alongside Tim Hardaway now with Ivy, with Jalen Duren, and with Tobias Harris. So I prefer Beasley to Tim Hardaway just slightly, just a better per minute dude. Obviously, Beasley quite a bit more expensive than Hardaway, but they're both going to be pulling a decent chunk of ownership. When you remove someone like Cade from the team, you cut out 30% usage, you cut out the massive assist rate. There's just a lot more to go around to these guys. So you're not even stopping at Beasley and Hardaway. You're looking at Jaden Ivey in a much different way. Jalen Duren, not too shabby. Isaiah Stewart is a no on DraftKings, is a okay on FanDuel at 4,700 with the power forward eligibility. But Beasley, Hardaway are the two biggies. Jaden Ivey, big, but not huge. Guys, give me 1 second. I'm back. Thanks, folks. Had to do some goodbyes. So we got that handled now. Back in it. Diego. Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible. Never a doubt yesterday. Never a doubt. We're shipping the league this year. What do you guys want to do with the Pistons? Because the interesting thing for me here is even with Cade out, I don't think Tobias Harris looks very good. I think it's the two wings in Beasley and Hardaway, and then it's Ivy and Duren. And it's not like I feel great about Duren, but he's just sort of like always a guy that you can get a little bit of a piece of because he could have such outlier rebounding days. It's just meh. It's just, there's just going to have to be a lot. There's going to have to be a lot here. Do you guys prefer Beasley or Hardaway? It's Beasley for me, but by a hair. Just because Tim Hardaway is just such a bad per minute dude. You're just going to get a little bit. They're both going to do absolutely nothing other than score. But Beasley will just do that a little bit better. I don't know. That's where I land. Interesting spot, though. We need that injury report for Toronto, and we're just going to play a lot of Detroit. Yeah, Keys, I agree. It's Beasley. Beasley was the most optimal guy that I ended up with coming out of my Sims. The New Orleans Pelicans, 6.5-point dogs in Indy, 227 total. Still no Jose Alvarado. Still no Herb Jones. No Carlo Makovich. DeJounte Murray now doubtful, so we should be seeing him shortly. Obviously, Zion. So, still missing four real dudes plus Carlo Makovich. Q-tag CJ McCollum. Q-tag Yves Missi. So we've got a lot here that is going to get complicating, but there are two guys here that I think we should be getting to regardless of who comes back. Brandon Ingram's 8,700 on DraftKings, 8,500 on FanDuel. He's looking like a priority to me. You're getting multi-position eligibility across both sites. I think his value is what you're looking for in that price range. He was north of 20% optimal across both sites. So I'm happy to get there. And then I'd like to get quite a bit of Trey Murphy, whether that's the $6,400 price on DraftKings, where he looks great, or the $6,100 price tag on FanDuel, where he's getting guard and forward eligibility. He's my most optimal guy right now on the FanDuel side. The minutes are up. They're here. They're real. I don't think they're going anywhere no matter what is coming back today. Like, the status of everybody else probably doesn't matter to me. We saw him play 38 this last time out. He played 30 and 29 previously. I went 33. I assume that he is just going to start playing regular starter minutes. You can make a case that's too high and you want to go to like a 31, but that's not changing the overall thought process here, which is that Trey Murphy is a priority today on FanDuel and a high-end play, at least on DraftKings. But aside from those two guys, the status of McCollum and Messi will certainly impact the rest of this, but we're not going to Brandon Boston, I don't think, barring everybody being out. You know, we don't need Jeremiah Robinson Earl at this point. Messi could be okay on DraftKings at 4,500, but it's not going to be anything you're going crazy for. It's really just Ingram and Murphy. And then we get to the Pacers side, which is a complete unknown. No injury report. They're playing on the back-to-back. We are pretty confident that Ben Shepherd isn't going to be playing in this one, but, you know, injury report be damned. But out last game, going to be out for a little bit, it seems. So, like, I'm assuming we're kind of just getting what we got yesterday out of the Pacers. And if that's the case, I think Miles Turner's probably a little underpriced at 6,700 across both sites. He would be the first name that I'm clicking on. And, you know, given the center situation for the Pelicans, that certainly makes me feel better. And then it's just a bunch of 10% stuff. Halliburton, Siakam, Mathurin. They're all just sort of like solid options. Nobody that you want to go crazy for, but they're not completely going to be disregarded like zero tier plays. So it's Halliburton, Siakam, Mathurin, you're okay. Turner is the closest thing that I would call to a priority, but he's still like a half step behind Ingram and Murphy were just from the previous team. I mean, I just don't trust Halliburton right now. I feel like Siakam just has the same game every night. Like, no matter what he does, he's just going to end up with like 37 fantasy points. No matter how well if he's scoring really well, he just won't do anything else. If the scoring's not there, then he'll like fill out the stat sheet otherwise. But it just feels like Siakam is the same guy no matter what. But I like the price. It's affordable. The minutes are there. The matchup is good. But it just doesn't leave you feeling like that's the guy that you want to try to hitch your wagon to. All right. Dallas Mavericks, 2.5 point dogs in Atlanta, 237 total. Is this the highest total today? It is. Okay, so this is the game with the highest total. This is also the game that I have projected with the highest pace. I'm going with the assumption that Luka is still out today. You know, you never know with any of this stuff. Would I be surprised at all if he shows up on the injury report with a Q tag? No. But for right now, I don't see it. I'm just going with everything Dallas did yesterday. Now, we might see like Maxey not play today, and then you see like Dwight Powell get a rotation. Don't think it matters. I think we need to talk about basically two things and two things only for Dallas. The first of which is the one that I like no matter what, and that's going to be PJ Washington. He's one of the three best plays on each site today. He's 6K on DraftKings, power forward only. He's 6,400 on FanDuel, power forward only. But the minutes are back to what, or at least they seem like they're back to what you would expect out of PJ Washington. Played 40 minutes yesterday. Now, that game, I believe, went to overtime. Let me double check that. Yeah, I'm right. So played 40, but they went to OT. So he would have played 35 without overtime. I only went 34. So that seems safe, barring him being limited on the back-to-back. We saw big minutes out of Kyrie as well, which shouldn't be too surprising. But if PJ Washington is getting back to his like starter minutes, especially when Luka is out, he's way underpriced. Way underpriced. So 34 minutes, even if you want to say it's 32 minutes out of PJ Washington, this is a big time value option. well, mid-tier value option, at least in that 6K range. Very optimal. So that's a guy that you are going to be getting to a lot. You're going to hear his name a lot. He's going to be a cash priority, barring crazy news today. And then the other guy that catches my eye is Kyrie, which I assume everybody's not shocked about, but it's not really on DraftKings. He's 9,700 on DraftKings, point guard, shooting guard. Look, that's a busy range. You've got Trae Young there. You've got LaMelo there. I'm clearly missing a bunch of other people. I'm sure Steph is like a little bit lower than that, but it's a busy range. He's only 9K on FanDuel. That's where I had him coming in 20% optimal. That's where you're trying to get to Kyrie. It's the FanDuel side, not the DraftKings side. But I don't really want anything else here for Dallas. I mean, Clay's minutes are down. He's been old-ass Klay Thompson. Quentin Grimes is going to play around 26 minutes, but not exactly the most thorough point per dollar type dudes. Najee Marshall's not playing enough. You can fall into really good minutes out of a Derek Lively, but that doesn't have to happen. Like, if you're a believer in Spencer Dinwiddie's minutes, you need all of them. He's so bad per minute. I got him at 0.68. So without massive minutes for Dinwiddie, you're not going into it with confidence. I think it's really just PJ Washington and Kyrie Irving, and that's it. Unless you're 150 maxing. Now, the Atlanta side looks a little bit different. Now, they're basically healthy now. The only guys that are out are G League guys: Barlow, Mohamed Gay, Seth Lundy. Keaton Wallace is now with the G League team. But I've got these guys all in this 10 to 15% optimal range. And then I have it even bigger depending on where we're looking. So Trae is around 12% optimal on both sites. That makes sense. But again, that price range is just busy. So you have plenty of pivots if you want them. Jalen Johnson looks pretty good on DraftKings. He's only $8,300. He's $600 more expensive on the FanDuel side. So I like getting to Jalen Johnson. He's playing 36 minutes a night. He's obviously the second best thing going for Atlanta. You're seeing a little bit of love to DeAndre Hunter on DraftKings. You're getting 10% of optimal to Bogdanovich, Okongwu, and Capella on DraftKings. But it's really Bogdanovich and Okongwu on FanDuel where I'm more interested. Okongwu gets the power forward eligibility along with center at 5,100. Now, you never know how many minutes he's going to play, but you're expecting him and Capella to play most of them. But some days you just get 28-minute Okongwu games. And if you do that when he's got that power forward eligibility, that looks good. And then, I expect Bogdanovich's minutes to creep up ever so slowly as every game goes by and as he plays himself back into shape. So I have him in for 26 right now, which could be a minute high. But I got him to 23% optimal on FanDuel. He's only 4,800 and has the shooting guard small forward eligibility. At least for right now, before we have a ton of booked value, that efficiency helps. It's easier to get to him than a lot of other options on the slate. And the game environment really helps. The pace here, the expected scoring here, the competitive nature of this game. If you can get those minutes out of Bogdanovich at 4,800, there's going to come a time where he just he'll play 30 for the first time and we didn't know it. And that's the day you want to be there and hope it breaks your way. So there's a lot to like for Atlanta. It's just not the firm priority of PJ Washington on the opposite side. All right. For anybody that's here, it's a thin crew today. What do we have in the door here? A little north of 100. I know, it's early, folks. The West Coast crew, they're sleeping, lazy, not getting up as early as they should. East Coast crew, I appreciate you guys. Coffee time. That coffee is now officially room temperature and disgusting. We'll deal with it. Schedule for the rest of the day. I can give you guys that. That's easy enough. I don't know it, so I'm about to guess this off the top of my head. But I'm going to say NFL strategy show coming up at 10 o'clock, potentially 10:15, but definitely one of those two times. NHL strategy show will be at 2. I think I'm going to be doing the Odds Shopper live show at 2 as well. That's going to be a little bit later than it normally is. Got some travels to do, get myself back to my house. But the night shows, that I've got on lock. 5 p.m., deeper dive. Myself and definitely someone, either Spags or DK, will be joining you tonight at 5. NBA Live Before Lock will be at 6 o'clock. You'll get probably Greg and Eric up until 7. No playback tonight because of Monday Night Football, but you'll get Monday Night Football Live Before Lock, 7:15 to 8:15. Plenty of content to go around, guys, for today. Lots of it to break down. We get to game number 5. Clippers, Celtics. This one's going to be tough to talk about. Clippers are 9.5-point dogs in Boston, 218 total. This is definitely much more of a defensive matchup, and it's not much of an offensive matchup for the Clippers either. I'm going to assume the Clippers are still without Norm Powell, but both of these teams are on a back-to-back, so this is quite subject to change. Steven, it is a long-ass day today, filled with large swaths of unfun time until I actually get into my home and hook my crap back up and feel like I can calm down. But yeah, it's going to suck. It's going to suck today. Tomorrow will be a little bit better. Wednesday is going to be the day of death, though. Every NBA team plays on Wednesday. We have 15 games. Or wait, no, is it? Yeah, that's Wednesday. Friday, we have games all day. They start at noon. No basketball Thursday. But Wednesday, we have the full 15. And that is going to mean I don't want to do anything in life on Wednesday. That's a lot to talk about. So today could be worse. Today could be a lot worse. I don't know what to do with the Clippers. Like, clearly you're getting to Harden. I've just talked about at least 3 different guards that are in the 9Ks. Add James Harden to the list. So good luck figuring out which version of Harden, LaMelo, who am I missing? Kyrie, Trae Young. Like, I mean, Brandon Ingram to a degree is like in this same sort of conversation. Halliburton is like sort of in this conversation. It's a lot of guards in the same price range. Oh yeah, there you go. De'Aaron Fox, NBA fan. That's a good shout. I mean, Jaylen Brown, Tatum, like they're all in the same sort of range. So it's Harden, clearly. A little bit of Zubats on DraftKings seems okay at 7K. And then again, I'm looking at Kevin Porter Jr. 4,400 on DraftKings, 4,600 on FanDuel. I got him in for 22 minutes. Like, the ability to get a little bit more playing time is there if it's going well. The fact that he's a good per minute performer is really the problem for KPJ. Because everybody else on the Clippers is terrible, whether that's Coffee or Jones or Dunn or Mann or Batum. Like, these are all bad per minute dudes. Porter's not. So he's the type of guy that can have one of those scores break free, even without the crazy minutes boost. I don't expect his value to look all that interesting by the time we get to lock, but for right now, the way that I have everything set up, I do have my eye on him still. But Harden would be the guy you'd want the most. For the Boston side, I mean, your guess is as good as mine here. I don't have, there's basically no way for us to be confident about what's happening in Boston today. So Luke Cornett missed yesterday, as did Keita. Both of those guys did not play a single second in yesterday's game. Now, my assumption is that we got 34 minutes out of Al Horford, and he's just going to sit. Yeah, Steven, if I put KPJ in for 26 minutes, he's 80% owned. So, like, that might be where we end up. But I didn't want to start the day like that. So I'm assuming Al Horford sits. I'm assuming Keita goes back to that starting spot, playing around 24 minutes. And then whether or not Luke Cornett can play will be an interesting piece on whether or not we're projecting Xavier Tillman to look a little bit different. Because if Cornett is out and Al Horford is out, then I think we will have a conversation about Tillman because he's the flat 3K on DraftKings and has the power forward eligibility. But for right now, I'm assuming Cornett is in until we hear anything different. It's also not out of the realm of possibility that someone else for Boston sits on this back-to-back. I don't know. None of us know. This is information for later. But Boston, regardless, like if you're putting everybody in except for Horford, then they're all the same guys they always are. You'll get 10% of Tatum. You'll get 10% of Brown. You'll get 10% of Drew. You'll get some Keita, assuming he's starting in this scenario. You're probably not getting to Peyton Pritchard. unless we get one of the guards out. You're probably not getting like Sam Hauser unless we get somebody else out. But this is just a spot where we need the injury reports. It's both teams. That is an incredible challenge to say anything confident about a game that has both teams on a back-to-back. So that'll be one that we'll definitely need to dig into a little bit further. Portland and Memphis. This is one that we'll need to dig into further, but it's sort of like the opposite version. We have the injury reports. We just have no idea who's playing. Portland, 10.5-point dogs in Memphis. This Portland team, even when everybody's in, sucks. But DeAndre Ayton is doubtful. Donovan Clingan is out. Matisse Thybulle's still out. Jeremy Grant is questionable. Scoot Henderson is questionable. Chris Murray is questionable. So it should come as no surprise that we have absolutely no idea what's going on for Portland from a context standpoint. All of those Q tags are important. They cause major trickle-down effects to everybody else. I mean, look at the pricing on these idiots on FanDuel. They're all 5K and 6K. 62, 52, 66, 6, 51, 56, 53, 54. They're all the same guy over and over and over again. We're going to play Time Lord no matter what. Robert Williams, 4,800 power forward center on DraftKings, 5,600 power forward center on FanDuel. Clearly a much better play on the DraftKings side, but I went 24 minutes. Conceivably, he could play more. You expect him to play whatever they're allowing him to play because of no Ayton and no Clingan. I'm guessing Dwap Reith ends up playing some backup run. That becomes an interesting roll of the dice. He's the flat 3K on DraftKings, and his only resistance to any real minutes is either the health or foul trouble of Time Lord. So you could potentially see Reith fall into more minutes than you would expect. And he's not a bad per minute guy, 0.95. Flat 3K, I can see it. I can see it on DraftKings. But maybe a couple of these other guys end up out. Like if Grant ends up out, we're projecting Denny Avdia very differently and probably getting to him. If him and Scoot end up out, then we're looking at guards a little bit differently. Maybe Simons looks better. And Simons, I think, already looks good around 6K and 15% owned. 15% optimal. If everybody's in, my eye is on Simons and Robert Williams. To a lesser degree, Scoot and Jeremy Grant. If we start losing some names, we'll have some better value here, but Time Lord season today. Echo, I don't know what you mean. Well, I don't know. I also don't know what's going on with the shades behind me. They're behind me. So I don't know. Now the Memphis side, also not super fun. Zach Edey out, Vince Williams out, G.G. Jackson obviously still out. And then now Ja Morant is questionable for today. Right hip subluxation and pelvic muscle strains. But he could play today. So we're probably not paying attention to anything on Memphis. You can always get Desmond Bane, regardless of Morant's status. And you can technically always get Jaren Jackson, although I don't think he looks good. The piece that will be at least mildly interesting would be if Ja Morant is in. He's only 7,900 on FanDuel. I don't know that he'd be like limited. I went 28 minutes. But if Ja's in, I like that on the FanDuel side. I can see that being a situation where you would take the chance. You can't do it for 9K on DraftKings coming back from this injury. But 7,900 on FanDuel, you can. But Wells, Pippen, Aldama, Smart, Clark, Laravia, Kennard, Huff, nah. The straight cross-offs. Bane, Jackson, Morant on FanDuel if he happens to be in. Those are your only options. If Morant happens to be out, then 5,900 for Scottie Pippen Jr. on FanDuel comes back into play. He's $1,000 more expensive on DraftKings. But again, this is a spot where we need a lot more information on the Portland side and on the Memphis side, because you guys know at least the Ja Morant status matters to everybody else on Memphis. If Morant is out, then let's play the Desmond Bane game. Speaking of situations that we don't quite know right now, the New York Knicks. So the Knicks are 4.5-point dogs in Denver. I have the line as a pick'em, but I think what this line is telling us is that we're going to have something weird, and that is going to be with regards to Karl Anthony Towns. Towns is questionable. McBride is questionable. Now, obviously, McBride has been out for a bit. But for me to have this line be 4 points different than Denver or than the current betting line, the markets right now are implying to me that Karl Anthony Towns is not playing tonight. If Towns ends up in, either this line falls and Denver's giving less points, and you should get it on this, like you should bet it now if you have confidence, or the line is right and we are going to be getting some Huck Porty, Jericho Sims tonight. So we need the status of Towns and McBride. But as of right now, while I have Towns in, I'm leaning Towns out. There are no priorities for the Knicks if everybody is in. It's your classic, like, Bridges and Hart play a bunch of minutes. Jalen Brunson is totally fine at 8,800. Add him to the list of around 9K guards. And then I like Towns if he's playing at 9,300 on DraftKings. But if Towns happens to be out, then we've got a $3,500 Jericho Sims. I assume a relatively low-priced Ariel Huckporty. So that could change up quite a bit. We've been seeing much bigger minutes out of Campaign lately with McBride out. We will be able to go to Campaign for value if we get McBride out again. And if we get them both out, Towns as well. Not that has a direct effect to Payne, but it's just one less other rotation piece around. But again, we need this news. But based on where the betting line is right now, my expectation is that Karl Anthony Towns will not be in this game. So, and if we don't have that news by the time we get to lock, paying attention to whether or not that 4.5 comes down, that'll be important. On the Denver side, it's pretty easy. I don't think there's much that we could really say here. Aaron Gordon is still out. Jokic is back. It's the same sort of rotation information that Denver always has. I don't think you're playing a soul from Denver unless his name's Nikola Jokic. 12K on DraftKings, 12.5 on FanDuel. If I'm going anywhere, it's Jokic. Everybody else, Porter, Murray, Brown, Watson, Westbrook, Strother, they're all no's. They're all no's. Only thing that I'm getting to for Denver today is Jokic. And boy, oh boy, is Jokic going to carve this Knicks team up if Towns happens to be out. Because then you're removing another decent, big body and replacing it with guys that just aren't going to be ready to break down Nikola Jokic's mental game. So Jokic and nothing. If you can pay up for Jokic, if you can find the salary, pay up for Jokic and find the salary. Now, that concludes the DraftKings portion of this show. DraftKings did not include the 2 10 o'clock games. So we have a 7-game slate on DK. This will be the last game. I mean, technically, yes, this will be the last game. This Knicks Nuggets game starts at 9. It's 3 7 o'clocks, 2 7:30s, an 8, and a 9. So this is the last piece of news. We might not know the status of Karl Anthony Towns and Miles McBride until 8:30 tonight. So be aware, this is a massive potential late swap spot. And we have no guarantees that we're going to have this news. So flexibility will be very important. Game number 8, as I mentioned, FanDuel specific, unless you're playing the late slate 2-gamer on DraftKings. Brooklyn Nets, 12.5-point dogs in Golden State, 223 total. Now, Brooklyn is on a back-to-back. We have no idea who is going to be playing for them. We assume that Ben Simmons is going to sit on the back-to-back. Noah Clowney hurt his ankle yesterday, didn't come back in. Now, I have him projected in, but stands to reason Noah Clowney will not be playing today. So this one is ripe to look very different. Claxton and Dorian Finney-Smith are both guys that could potentially be questionable. Schroeder didn't play yesterday. Dorian Finney-Smith didn't play yesterday. I don't know if they want to sit Claxton on a back-to-back. So very difficult to talk about Brooklyn right now. I think Cam Thomas at 7K on FanDuel looks good no matter how that injury news breaks. If everybody's in, the only thing that I did so far is take Simmons out for the back-to-back and then bring Shake Milton back into the rotation, which is sort of what they've been doing anytime Ben Simmons has been out. But we need the news here. Because if we don't have Ben Simmons and Noah Clowney and Dorian Finney-Smith and potentially Nick Claxton, then yeah, there's going to be some value here for Brooklyn. For right now, it's Cam Thomas to me and not much else. If Schroeder's in, I think it's okay. But Cam Johnson could look very different. Jalen Wilson could look very different. Zaire Williams could look very different. We might be getting to a bunch of Trendon Watford. So this one is all information that we don't have yet. Cards ate my wallet. I will say this again. I say it every single show. Do not look at injury status on DraftKings and FanDuel. There is no less reliable source of information. We have no injury report. We do not know anything about Brooklyn right now. It's okay, Cards. You're good. Golden State side, the good news for us here is that we'll never like anybody on this team until they start changing up their rotations. We do have a Q tag on Jonathan Kuminga. Everybody else is available except for Melton. These guys just continue to play 20 minutes. It's full stop random rotations. There's no confidence here. I don't know how you roster anybody other than Steph, Draymond, or Wiggins. And to me, it's really Steph, and I'm probably not all that interested in anybody else. There's just not much to say about Golden State at this point. But the Brooklyn side could end up being huge. We just don't know yet. Cards, you're good. You're good. Final game. Another one where you're probably not spending a lot of time on both sides. So we have Oklahoma City, Caruso out, Ousmane Dieng out, obviously Chet out, Jalen Williams with the Y still out. Isaiah Joe might be back. He's got the Q tag. And then we know that we got Isaiah Hartenstein back last time out. As I see this one right now, there are three guys that you can roster with any confidence. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at 11K. He would be my preferred option on the FanDuel side. Jalen Williams, 8,800 on FanDuel. Doesn't have to play 30-something minutes at center any longer. That will make him look a little bit better. And then Isaiah Hartenstein at 6,200. I mean, came back, played like 28 minutes in the opener. I went 28 here. In theory, could play more. I just don't know what they're going to do with him yet. I'd be willing to get to Isaiah Hartenstein in this spot. Not exactly someone I'm like interested in, but he is rosterable. I don't want Dort. I don't want any of these other bench guys that are all going to be like Golden State playing 22 minutes with no confidence. So it's Shea, it's Jalen, and it's Hartenstein in that order. Now the Kings are different because Fox is still playing massive minutes. 8,900 point guard only. I think Fox is the best of all of those guard options that I've outlined over this whole show. Your LaMelos, your Stephs, your Trays, your whatever, Halliburton. I think Fox is the guy you want the most. Now, terrible matchup, really tough, especially with Hartenstein back. Breaking down the OKC defense is not going to be easy. But it's Fox is the guy that I would want the most out of Sacramento. Then you're just playing the minutes game. Keegan Murray, Domantas Sabonis, Kevin Huerter, these guys that are going to play north of 30. DeMar hasn't sabotaged the Kings. They sucked last year without him. They were going to be bad one way or the other. They're the same sort of bad we expected. Yeah. It's not like we got to stop thinking they were any good. They weren't good yet. Last year they didn't have them, and they were equally as not good with the exact same guys. I think it's a testament to the other guys that are on the team not being what everybody thinks they are. I think Fox is a legit priority on FanDuel, which is really helpful, at least because it's the last game. Because I think if you end up with a lot of Fox, that's just going to be helpful for any of those late swap scenarios that pop up. I don't hate the idea of being a little overexposed to Sacramento early. Better than everyone besides the top four. That is a comical evaluation of the Sacramento Kings. They are not that team, and there's no expectation that they would be. overrated. Yeah, they're not good. They're not good. So that's where we're at. 9 games up, 9 games down, folks. Contenders will be out at some point in time today. Sometime between right now and 6 o'clock. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but it'll be out eventually. Odd Shopper live at 2. Deeper Dive at 5. Live Before Lock at 6. NFL Live Before Lock at 7. I'm going to get on out of here, folks. Got this one done early. Hit that like button on your way out the door. Subscribe to the channel. Notification bell. You guys know the drill. Back to normal tomorrow. I wake up. I feel like a normal person in my own bed, not mildly hungover. It's going to be a great week. We'll talk to you guys later.